Hello, my beautiful, gorgeous dance baby, and welcome to another episode of More Than Dance. Today, we are talking about the dress rehearsal and, more importantly, the mental rehearsal for when you are about to embark on something new or something that isn't in your routine yet. Now, you know that dancers, when they get ready for a big performance, we have a couple of different rehearsals. One of them is the dress rehearsal, and I think you're most familiar with that one. There's also a tech rehearsal, and there's also what we call like Tech Week. And Tech Week is actually, remember this in college being one of the most fun weeks because we are anticipating the big show. And in our case, we had two shows. One would be on a Friday night and the other would be on a Saturday afternoon, or Saturday night and then Sunday afternoon, depending on how the week went and the other activities of the concert hall. And it was so fun because starting from the beginning of the week, we all knew that we were up for extra hours, extra rehearsals, drilling, waiting, and like just building that anticipation. It's kind of like the week before Christmas, like when you were a kid. And just that excitement still is with me every time we have a big show. Now, the shows that we do now aren't really like those shows because we're not in one concert hall and we travel to the venues where we are performing. And so in college, we would have the opportunity to really work everything out. And there was a lighting designer that we would talk to. And especially if you were choreographing, you would speak to them and tell them what lighting design you wanted for your piece. You could also add in any specifications that you wanted with your music. And then you could also have the opportunity to watch your dancers run their routine several times with the lighting and the music and, of course, the spacing. Spacing was so important because our stage is much different than the place that we would rehearse. So currently right now, our performance team, we perform on stages in hotels, we go downtown and we perform, and we are at event centers, different places. And so when we approach the stage or we approach the night of performance, we sometimes get a tech and sometimes we do not. And on the cases that we do not, we're almost going in blindly in a way. And I'm here to tell you that if you are properly rehearsed and you prepare for everything that you can think of, then you're going to be okay. And I'm talking about this right now in the frame of you being a dancer. And really, I want to connect it more to life because it's so important to run a tech week on the things that we do. Because on a typical stage, a stage that you are used to performing on, you kind of know the ins and outs, what's behind stage, what are the wings like, what the lights are like. You also know where the audience is going to be and how much of them you're going to see. And it's always so funny actually, like thinking about this because on stage in some venues, it's almost impossible to see the audience because of how bright the stage lights are and how dark the auditorium is. And I always found this so funny, like the moments where I would actually find my parents in the audience or find my friend in the audience, because sometimes you'd be like looking, but you could distract yourself from your actual routine if you're looking too hard. And I'll actually never forget this time that we were performing and they installed these lights in the wings backstage, and they were so blinding. And it was so funny because we would go off stage if we needed to in the midst of our performance and kind of like have to adapt a little bit to gather our stance so that we wouldn't like be dizzy or so that we'd be able to like gather our bearings and then like get back on stage. It was kind of crazy. And it was so funny to think that something as simple as extra lighting in the wings, which we are already used to lighting as dancers, could have so much of an effect on us after months of rehearsing the same routine. And so this actually brings me to a couple years ago. We took our performance to a venue in Rhode Island, and when we approached the stage, we were rehearsed. I mean, we, like, as I told you before, we usually do 25 full outs. We are practicing facials. We're practicing different facings. We're practicing facing each other. We do a lot of different things to make sure that We're ready for anything. Now, this particular night was so surprising because we got on stage in a blackout. It's dark, so you kind of just like go out there and estimate where you're going to be standing. And you want it to be pretty flawless because the entrance does matter, especially in competition. This wasn't a competition though. It was just a performance. And we get on stage, the lights come on, our song comes on, and we start dancing. And unbeknownst to us, there's a giant camera in front of our faces on the stage, which is lovely in the case of getting us like some really great shots. And also a big surprise because what we're used to as dancers is the camera crew is usually in the way back, filming from a distance and getting their angles that way. Or in the case of at the studio, when we're doing our showcase, we're used to the camera being forward and, Joshy's behind the camera. And in this case, it was kind of like this like giant contraption, and it was like moving in and out of the stage. Like in fact, like it got this close. And I just remember us all after our performance was over, like going backstage again to go back to the green room, if you will. We were like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting that camera. And, it threw me off. So I can only imagine how it threw off my students as well. And it didn't throw me off into a point of like, I forgot my dance, but it could have. It was actually just such a good reminder of like, hey, you rehearsed this so much that you didn't even get distracted by a giant camera on stage that you were not expecting. Another time that this happened was most recently. We were downtown and we got to our stage, which was profoundly bigger than we were expecting. And actually, on the flip side, I used to have a dance partner and we performed at a place that was a tiny, tiny, tiny dance floor. And we adapted on spot our routine. And in the case of this routine, we also adapted. And I just remember being on stage and like, you're thinking of the routine. Usually you're thinking about like engaging and smiling, and there's a lot of thoughts that come through, and some of those thoughts are like, oh my gosh, there's my friend, or wow, look at the lights, or the music is the perfect volume, or if it's not, it's like, why isn't it louder? You're kind of just like analyzing all of these things that are happening in real life and things that you really can't control at that moment. It was funny, actually, this most recent time, part of our routine gets a little bit silent, and there was a band and they were getting themselves ready and testing their instruments. And so they were testing their instruments like over our song. So we were like doing our dance and we could hear like multiple sounds of different music in addition to our music. There was another thing that was really unique about this performance for me. It was one of the first times I really felt like my body went into true autopilot to perform the routine, because the sound was so hefty and it was so like in a low vibration for me that like what I was hearing mostly was like the people's cheers and the people in front of me. Obviously the band instruments, the music, yes, it was really loud, but like there were speakers here and speakers. I don't know. It was something about the way I was hearing the music. I kind of was like, I have no idea what I'm doing right now. But because my body was so rehearsed, I was doing it fine. I didn't miss a beat, even though mentally I felt like I could really mess this up. Like, I don't even know. Like, it was just like actually a crazy experience. So I'm still like dissecting it as we're speaking here. But the reason why I'm bringing up all these different moments is because it's so relevant to what we do in life. And being the dancer that I am, I've danced for my whole life. I don't know how many shows I've been in. I don't know how many performances, how many routines. And to be still thrown off on stage is kind of cool. Like in a way, it's like, wow, like what are they going to surprise me with next? And to be so ready and to have almost a formula for getting myself ready and getting my students ready so that we are actually prepared for anything. It all comes down to Tech Week, dress rehearsal, and obviously every rehearsal. So what I'm here to tell you is that when there is a moment in your life when you are approaching something that is new, something that is different, something that is not in your current routine, can you make a dress rehearsal out of it? Can you make a tech week out of it? And what that means is, can you picture yourself living in what you are actually doing for real every minute, every hour of the day, the week, the month, with this new thing incorporated? So, for example, if you are thinking about having a child or having a puppy or including something in your life that demands your attention, can you go about your week, your day-to-day, imagining and visualizing what it would be like to have this new thing in your life. So in the case of a puppy, like, can you picture, okay, like I'm doing this right now. What is my puppy doing? Or I'm about to go away this week. Where would my puppy be? So Josh is super excited because he's getting Invisalign. And one of the things with Invisalign is that you're going to be wearing these things every day, all day. And we were just at the beach last weekend and I was like, hey, like, how would that have gone for you? Could you picture it? Because if you don't know, now you know. When we go to the beach, we go hard. We are full on Italians at the beach. My mom makes homemade pizza. She brings it on actual trays, calzone. We have drinks. And, we're spending the whole entire day actually like munching, eating. We have sandwiches, snacks. Like, it's like a whole thing. It's a whole like extravaganza. And when you get Invisalign, you're wearing those trays for the entirety of the day. I was like, on a day like today, like, how would that have gone for you? And were you picturing it? Because I guess I'm just used to like making a dress rehearsal out of things. Like, what would this entire day feel like if XYZ? And it's grown to be one of my most helpful strategies to myself and to my friends and family, because it's really allowing you to put yourself in the position and have a little bit of control in what could become a uncontrollable situation. And going back to dancing for a second, because we rehearse so much, like there's moments where we are so clean, like everything's polished, and we could have a beautiful performance. And we still rehearse it and we still drill it. And it's because of the unknown, because of that camera that was just randomly up on the stage, because of the stage being bigger and us adjusting to our spacing, because of the stage being smaller and us adjusting to the smaller stage, because of the lighting. Oh my gosh, I didn't even tell you about the strobe lights that we got last year, because of the strobe lights that were literally like in our face and making us almost want to pass out. Because of the sound. Oh my gosh, as I'm thinking about this now, like all of them are like flooding to my brain. There was another one where the lights completely came off in the middle of our show and we just kept on dancing, because that's what we are so trained at doing, is to just go and do. Now, we didn't predict like, oh, hey, if the lights come out, like what are we going to do? But we just almost have this like harmony and this energy as a team that we continue, and that we know what we're doing, and that if we mess up, the show must go on. And we just have to get the fuck there and figure it out. And with life, you can put yourself in that same situation by being so prepared. And actually, Alex Hormozy has this amazing quote on being prepared. Two of them, actually. One of them is, you show people how much you care by how much you're prepared. And the other one is, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your training or your preparedness. And these are just so important, and they stand by me, because if you are so prepared, you can handle any situation that comes across you, even if it's not the exact situation. So no, we did not anticipate a giant camera being in our face. However, we did prepare for the idea that anything could happen. And this can be seen so vividly in the preparedness that it takes for me to DJ any wedding that I'm DJing. And the preparedness is like all of the backups, anticipating anything that could possibly happen, so that when it does happen, you're ready for anything. And I'm going to tell you a quick little story about what happened last summer. And ever since this has happened, it's like solidified me doing all the things that I do and the things that I talk about doing to be prepared, because my preparedness saved me. So let's rewind to September 2024. I was DJing a wedding in Plymouth and the power went out, which is actually so ironic because right now, as I'm filming this podcast, we are approaching weird storms and our power just like went out for a second. So it's kind of like another moment of divine timing with podcasting. So the power went out. Someone hit a telephone pole. The whole entire street was completely blacked out. Now, the bride and groom had ordered uplighting, which was awesome because this was at a house, a really beautiful mansion in Plymouth. And it was outside and they had a tent. And because they had uplighting, no one actually, and we were in the dance portion of the night. We had just kicked off the dance floor. We were maybe 5 songs in, and with no warning, as power outages go, the power went out. And because they had the uplighting, no one noticed. Our lights were already dimmed out because of the uplights, because we had started the dance floor. And what I noticed was, okay, all my power went out. So it was funny because I was like almost prepared for this to happen. And I just remember playing music. I was getting ready to like cue up my next song and nothing, no sound. And I was like, okay, someone probably like tripped over the power cord, which is also kind of unlikely because of the measures that I go through for that not to be an obstacle and for no one to do that. However, it could be possible that someone accidentally unplugged it instead of tripped. Anyway, so I immediately, my first thing that I did was I looked back to see where my power cord was and to see if it was still plugged in. And it was. And I was like, okay, so everything's still plugged in. And I looked at everything that had power and everything was out. And that's how I knew it wasn't just a speaker. So instead of sitting there trying to figure out what was going on, I knew I needed to just get music on as quickly as possible. And I'm telling you, within a matter of like 5 seconds, I took my battery powered speaker, which is my Bose S1. I had that next to me for those just in case moments. And I clicked it on. It's already hooked up to a Bluetooth on one of my phones. So I hit a song on Spotify. I hit that on, got music going. It still has sufficient sound. I mean, that thing pumps. Then I was like, okay, with that song playing, I'm just going to dissect what the heck happened. Come to find out, I look down the road and all the power is out. And I go inside to the house and all their power is out. And I was like, okay, it's a power outage. At that point, I knew I wasn't going to fiddle around with my equipment because there probably wasn't anything wrong with it. I started playing from Spotify, and it was actually so funny because prior to the dance floor, I had gone around to all the different tables just to be like, hi, I'm the DJ, like any fun songs, just to connect with the guests. And also because like, I don't do this at every wedding, but I don't know, randomly at this one I did. Sometimes I like to go and like find my party table. So I had done this and I had remembered like people's songs because at that point, like I could use my computer just for like what I like put up and prepared, but also like my laptop was hooked up to my software. And if I was depending on that, then, you know, my battery would die. Like, so I was trying to also conserve batteries for all of the devices. Because if you put your software on your phone, then like you're looking at like battery, like draining faster. Anyway, so I was just trying to like make the best decisions for what I had in the moment. And it was just so cute and so funny. Like, first of all, nearly no one noticed, which surprised me because the power did go out in the middle of a song. But because I was able to get the song up so quickly, like I just remember no one really like thinking it. And the only reason why they noticed it was because the bathrooms no longer had power. So they were like, oh, there's no power in the bathrooms. And I remember this one guy coming over. He was like, how do you have all the power? And so I like held up my like battery powered speaker and like also like a backup battery too for when I do ceremonies on the beach. And it was just like a really fun moment to like be a hero. Again, this was a wedding. This wasn't just a party. And this was like what the couple had been looking forward to. They were really excited about. I know there's some couples that don't really care about the dancing portion. I would say like maybe 89% of my couples really do care about the dance floor. So these were one of those couples that really cared about the dance floor. And so for that to be ruined because of power, like it would have just been horrible. So being able to save the day because I was so prepared not only felt good, but it impacted so many people. I mean, they had probably like 125 guests. So when you're thinking about you, what are you doing? What are you approaching right now? What are you bringing into your life? And how prepared can you be? And can you do a dress rehearsal of you with that thing or you having that change in your life to one, see if you really want it. Going back to puppies for a second, Josh is always like, oh, we got to get you a puppy. We have to get you a puppy. And I would absolutely love a puppy. And I also know that in my current life and the things that I'm doing on a daily basis, if I run the dress rehearsal in my head, I really don't want a puppy. And it's sad to say because like, if you know me, you know I adore dogs. And I mean all dogs, like when I say puppy, they're all a puppy to me. And because I can run the dress rehearsal and I can think of so many things that I wouldn't really want to deal with if I had a puppy, I know that my answer needs to be no. So I can never trick myself into like going with my heart and just getting a dog and just figuring it out. I can back it up by logic and science in a way because it's something that I've thought through and something that I've realized that it's not for me. right now. So, another thing to think about, and another way this is applicable, is I know that you might be excited to try a dance class, and there's a lot of anticipation. There's a lot of buildup of question. Is this for me? Can I do this? Will I be able to learn? Will I stand out like a sore thumb and look stupid? And my wish for you is, can you do a dress rehearsal on what it would feel like to come into the studio for the first time and anticipate things that might happen, and also know that you're never going to know everything that could happen. You could just be extra prepared for what could happen and rehearse even what could go right. And one of those things is thinking about everything that comes up for you. So if you're the person that is kind of shy, if you're the person that gets anxious, if you're the person that likes to blend in, if you're the person that doesn't want to be in the front row. I mean, let's just like take that and like work with it for a second. So, okay, you don't want to be in the front row. Guess what? You can get there and you can make sure you make a space for yourself in the back. You're a nervous person. So, can you prepare something that you can say inside your head for when you're nervous? Can you make a time allotment for that class? So, it's like, I'm going to go. Class is 2 hours, and I'm going to commit myself to the full 2 hours, and I'm going to leave and allow myself to feel really good about going no matter what happens, because my biggest goal is that I just want to do this. And I always laugh because when my students come through, they're collectors, and they usually do have a goal, which is why I love to ask my students what their intention is. And then all of a sudden, they've collected other people's goals in the midst of the class. And I've got to ground them for a second and be like, yo, that wasn't your goal when you walked in. You told me it was facials. Why are you worried about legs? Why are you worried about memory? Why are you worried about flexibility now? And they're almost like, that's right. That was my goal. And remember, we talked about this too, like, can you do less? Is there ever a moment where you can take a little pressure off and do a little less? Lower the expectations for yourself just a little bit, because that's what could be really helpful in a case like this. So you're preparing, you're like, okay, well, I know I'm going to create my intention. Awesome. I know I'm going to create my pep talk to myself that's going to help me in a situation where I'm going to get anxious. And maybe it's just accepting, like, I'm going to get anxious. I'm accepting that. That's going to happen. Now you're prepared for it. Now you've done a dress rehearsal where you're like, okay, this is what it's going to feel like. I'm going to be anxious and I'm going to be learning dance. What could that feel like? It might feel like panic. And because you're used to that thought now, you're like, okay, I'm expecting it to be like that. And suppose it's a moment where we just talked about it. You want to be in the back row. Suppose the teacher brings you up to the front. Maybe now you're like, okay, I'm going to go to the front and this is going to be my anxious moment. And I'm ready for it, and I know what to do. I know to think about my senses, look at something that I can see if I can smell anything, and just kind of like ground myself. Maybe I hold my legs. Maybe I tap my legs on either sides. Maybe I go get water or go to the bathroom. Like, it depends on, obviously, like how severe the panic is. And because you're ready for it, because you've rehearsed this exciting new activity, you're already knowing. You're like, well, I've got to get out of my comfort zone somehow. And it's going to help you to understand what to do to stay in the sweet spot. Because remember, we talked about the survival zone, and we only want to be there for maybe a little bit just to know that we got to get back to the sweet spot. So in this dress rehearsal, you're trying things on for size. When we try on costumes for dress rehearsal, we're making sure that they stay fastened, that the gems don't fall off, that nothing pops out, nothing shows, and that our costume can withstand everything that we're doing in the costume. So in the case of you, can you try on for size what it would feel like to be in said situation with all of the emotions that you predict could happen? So do the dance of walking through it moment by moment. Do the dance of visualization. Do the dance of thinking about a way to gain your composure if things get really bad. Or in the case, like flipping back, because I love puppies, like, okay, so you're deciding maybe I could handle it. All right, well, what will I do if I travel and everyone is out of town? And I know that one of my biggest values is to make sure like my puppy is with people that I know. Well, if everyone that I know is out of town, then maybe before I get my puppy, I do research on the best doggy daycares. Maybe I turn to friends and I figure that out. Maybe for 2 months, I lay out all the finances like that, and it's as if I had a dog, just so I could feel it first. Rehearsing is always going to help you react less, respond more, ground yourself quicker, and recover faster. Rehearsal helps you build the muscle of readiness. It makes the unexpected less terrifying and more like, oh, we've met this version of chaos before. A dress rehearsal is also a moment to just accept that you don't have to wait for the perfect moment to happen. Remember, we talk about taking fear along with us for the ride versus leaving it behind. Sometimes we just need to show up and put the pressure on as if we were in the real show, as if we were on stage, because that's a different kind of pressure. And it's kind of funny in a way. It's almost like if you are a dancer or even a performer, there's moments where you have your friends and they're like, oh, show us your dance. And it's like, no one's treating that moment as real as the real thing. So what I mean by that is when you're in your living room and your friends are like, hey, show us a dance, that's never going to be the real experience of you being on stage with a real live audience. Same as if you're a musician and your friends are like, oh, play us a song. That's never going to feel and put the pressure on in the exact way, because it's so intimate in a living room and it's so intimate in a close-knit thing where when it's not the real thing, that it's like, oh, hold on, I messed up. You're almost like needing to mess up because it's not real. Everyone knows it's not a real performance. So when you're doing your dress rehearsal, what can you do to make it feel really real? What can you do to trick your brain to be like, wow, this is the real thing? And the answer is, it's never the real thing until it's the real thing, which goes back to being prepared. So the more you're prepared and the more you understand, like even just that moment of me realizing I had my backup speaker, I also had to be so prepared to know like how I was going to turn it on, how I was going to get it connected to music. Like all of that had been rehearsed because I've done it so many times. I've connected it so many times. I knew I needed to leave it in a certain place. I knew I needed to put it next to me so I could grab it. I knew I needed to keep one phone attached to it at Bluetooth at all times. There were things that I was doing as if it was the real thing. And when we talked about rehearsing your fuck up, we talked about the idea of utilizing your other skills and leaning on your other skills that you know and love to get through something that is difficult. So I knew at that moment I could hop out and just be like, hey, everyone, like I told you before, we're going to take a group picture and maybe use that one again. Or I would have used my skills of working with a crowd. Maybe I would have taught them a dance. Who knows? There's so many things I could have done in that moment to lean on my other skills and my other talents that would have saved me. And because I was prepared in all of those elements, I was able to do one of them, which ended up working. So what I want to leave you with today is this power of dress rehearsal, this power of a mental rehearsal, so that you are able to picture and do and be prepared for anything that you wish. Because dancers visualize. We walk through our routines in our head, we imagine audience reactions, and we anticipate things that could happen, knowing full well we are signed up for surprises too. This same tactic will work for you if you want to try a new activity. Do the dress rehearsal. Picture the day, picture the outfit, picture the moment that you walk in. If you want to leave a job, rehearse the conversation. Rehearse your new routine without that job. How would it feel? Maybe you want to perform. Rehearse the nerves. Put yourself in situations where you're out of your comfort zone, because we always think we'll be ready, but we don't get ready by waiting. We get ready by rehearsing. I'm so excited for you to treat your next big decision, your next big goal, your next big shift, or your next big addition to the family as if you are in a dress rehearsal. And I hope that it helps you become as prepared as you can be so that you can lean on your skills and your other areas of expertise, because we will never be fully ready for the surprises, but the surprises do happen and we get to embrace them. So if this was helpful for you, I would love to ask you for a 5-star written review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the dance floor.